Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Komark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the show today. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Laura Komark. I'm a website and tech integration specialist who works with women who love their work, but not their website. My guest today is Sarah Guilliot, who is a launch strategist with 20 years experience in web and user experience design and copywriting. She's created sales pages, site architecture, and advertising campaigns for big tech corporations such as Microsoft, GoDaddy, and T-Mobile. Sarah currently runs an agency at sarahdesign.com, where she provides a sales page copywriting service for business coaches and online educators launching an online course, group programs, or membership. Sarah, thank you so much for being here on the show today. I'm so excited to introduce you to my audience. Can you tell everyone just a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yes. And thank you for having me, Laura. It's super fun to be here. So I am a copywriter. I was a designer for most of my career in corporate, but I also worked with copy and I created tons of sales pages. And we were just talking before this call about I had recently made a pivot where I've removed design services from my offering, and I'm really doubling down on copy for sales pages for those people who are launching their courses and their group programs. And it's really fun. It's fun to bring my experience in this way to the women around me. And so, I'm excited for what's ahead.
I'm excited for you too. And just so our audience knows, Sarah and I met a number of years ago and we're in like a little chat mastermind together. And so it's always fun because she's one of the people I bounce a lot of ideas off of, and she is one of my idea generators, I will call you. So that's
my favorite.
Right. I know you always have really fun ideas of things. You have a fun way of looking at things kind of outside of the box and getting a different perspective. And so I've always really appreciated that about you.
Thank you.
So I would love to know, can you kind of take us back a little bit? I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey when you first went into the online space.
Yeah. So, it's kind of an interesting story because I did the whole corporate thing for 20 years and I was, for all intents and purposes, successful. Like I, climbed the corporate ladder. I knew how to kind of get around the politics of the office. But I was not loving it. I was really tired of having managers and other people in charge of my time, So I started dreaming about kind of doing my own thing, but I was really scared. And myself and my bestie in the office, we were like masterminding our little side businesses that we would sneak off to the conference rooms and work on during the day. And we were just, exploring, but I didn't have the courage yet to leap out on my own. And then my husband had a health scare. So he had a stroke in his early 40s, which I didn't think people had strokes in their 40s. And it was a total surprise. And he's fully recovered, by the way, all is well. But I remember sitting with him in the hospital where he was recovering and thinking, I don't want to be like on my deathbed, regretting never having given it a shot, not taking the leap. Because what's the worst that could happen? I can take this leap, try to do this business thing. If it doesn't work out, I just go back and get another job, right? So that was kind of that catalyst, that pivotal moment for me where I made the decision I wanted to do it. And then I think it was like a year after that I took the leap. So, yeah.
I love that. I think we all kind of have some of those stories where there was that point where we're like, it's time for something to change. And I am in control of my destiny. I mean, we're the ones it's not just going to happen for us. We're the ones that have to kind of take those scary steps and go out and try it and make it happen. So I love that you did that. Because I mean, I've been following you in the online space for years, and it's been really fun to watch your business evolve and see you get just really amazing results for your clients.
Thank you. And it's been amazing to, when you first go out, you don't know anybody, like developing the community and the friendships like yours and, a lot of our mutual friends, and really creating that new community around myself has been amazing. And I've never felt alone since those first days. So it's, just surrounding ourselves with these uplifting voices is so important. And so, yeah.
So would you say you found that kind of community early on when you went online?
Yeah. I mean, when I first went online, I was building out an Etsy shop. So I was finding community inside the Etsy community. I was building out, I was selling these specialized Photoshop mockup files to a particular kind of Etsy shop owner who was selling drinkware online, which is a hard thing to photograph. And so I started joining some like Facebook groups and communities with that. And then I started doing courses, and I didn't know how to do courses. So I joined courses about creating courses and began making friends in there. And that's probably the first time that, like, when I was making friends inside the Etsy community, that was customer friends. But once I enrolled in online courses to learn how to do my own course, that's when I started getting around other business owners trying to do the same thing as me. So it was more my peers.
Yep.
And so that's where it kind of began. And it's mostly, people bag on Facebook, but Facebook has been such a friend to me in terms of having all these communities to meet people like you. And
I love Facebook for that right there. I mean, I feel like I went out on my own, I would say in 2015, which is when I left corporate, or when corporate left me. And I was also, a new mom shortly thereafter, and was feeling really lonely. And it took until really like 2020 to feel like I found my people. And so for me, it was really lonely for a long time. It wasn't until I started joining like mastermind groups, and the group that you and I actually had met in, where I really started kind of finding the people that I was like, these are my people. These are the people I've been looking for to come hang out with and like have these like lifelong friendships with. And we can all sit and like talk about funnels and sales pages and all this like online business techie jargon stuff that just lights me up.
I know. I love it. I love being around people like you, because we could talk about that all day long. And then Voxer being like invented, has been a real push toward developing even deeper relationships, because you're like, oh, let's connect on Voxer. Next thing you know, you're talking all day long, more to your Voxer friends than your family.
And for those in our audience who don't know what Voxer is, it's kind of like this walkie-talkie app where you can either listen to people talk live as they're leaving you this recorded message, or you can listen to it later if you're not available or around. You have groups with Voxer with multiple people in it. You can text in it, and you can send photos and short videos. I think there's a 30-second cutoff, but I love Voxer. I have lots of Voxer communications going on the daily. And I love being able to Voxer while I'll hit the button and it connects to my Bluetooth. So when I'm driving, I have
exactly
the driving chronicles of Laura, as one of my Voxer friends calls it. So I would love to know. So you've done a few pivots in your business, which I think is amazing. We were talking just yesterday about how you have recently done a pivot, and I just think it's the thing that people don't always talk about is when we build these businesses, the thing you start out doing is not the thing you're going to continue to do forever. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. I was on a call this morning with one of my clients, and I had built her website, or I'd redesigned it from a couple of years ago. And there's a ton of changes we need to make, because it's been like 2 years since we really touched anything on it. And her business is changing. It's evolving. It's making tweaks and changes. And I feel like people almost feel bad when they're like, oh, I'm changing what I'm doing. And we shouldn't. because
Yeah.
it's okay. And that's the natural progression of business.
Yeah. I've often felt bad. I've felt like, oh, I'm so flaky. I can't make a decision. Why can't I stick with something? But each time I've made a change, if I look back, it's because I was more informed. Like I tried something out, didn't quite work the way I wanted to. I'm feeling called in a different direction. And then I keep going. So it's like all mindset, you gotta kind of like stop thinking about this as a failure. This is smart. This is us experimenting, testing, tweaking, iterating, and changing and moving forward and things change out in the world too. So yeah, I find that it's like this evolution. It's not just an evolution for my business, but also my personality and my personal growth.
Yeah.
And even like just acknowledging that the choices I make today, I don't have to feel like they're permanent, has been good for me too. Like I know that probably down the road, I'm going to get away from services, but right now, just make like services is for me right now, and making that change from design to just copy only feels really solid right now. And I feel really excited about it, but also not putting pressure on myself that this is my permanent decision. This is what I will be for till the end of days. It helps it, it lightens it up and lets me feel more free, which is what I want out of business for the most part anyway.
Absolutely. I feel like that's why a lot of us do this, is for the freedom of it. Freedom it provides, for sure. Yeah. And that goes in freedom in our being able to go live our life the way we want, and freedom to make the changes we want in our business. So I love that. And I'm excited to see where you go with all this, because I love your copy. You write amazing copy. So it's very exciting things. I want to talk a little bit about the tech side of things of your business, because as you know, I do website and tech integrations, and I just love geeking out over all that stuff. So can you talk to me, what platform is your website on?
Yeah, so it's on Squarespace right now. When I first started my business, I tried using WordPress and found that WordPress doesn't work with my brain. I need the limitations of a program like Squarespace. And I was struggling to make it look the way I wanted it to look on WordPress. Also, that was years ago. WordPress has changed a lot. So yeah, I'm on Squarespace right now. I was on Kajabi briefly, and then I came back to Squarespace.
I didn't know that you went back. I thought you were on Kajabi.
Yeah, this is just really recent, because I was, as you know, and your listeners don't know, I was trying to hone in my design services to like, what platform will I focus on? And I was focusing on Kajabi, but then I had focused for years on Squarespace. And so I had people coming out of the woodwork that knew me as the Squarespace person. And so then I was doing a lot of Squarespace work, and I'm like, why am I paying so much money for Kajabi right now? And I'm not using any of the course aspects of it. I'm not using the email part of it, because I use ConvertKit. It really didn't make sense, the return on investment. So I'm like, back to Squarespace. And now, since I'm not doing design work, it doesn't matter what platform I use. So even easier.
Love that. And then you also have a free course you do. That's a challenge, right?
Yeah. I have a free 5-day sales page challenge, and that is actually on MemberVault. So
Can you talk to us a little bit? I know I'm in your challenge, and I was just blown away with it. I would love to have you tell our audience, just explain a little bit about the challenge that you offer.
Yeah. So I find that sales pages are really intimidating for people. And, if you're at one point in business, you might be ready to hire someone to help you write it and build it. But if you're earlier stage in business, you're probably going to DIY it, and it's really scary. And so people end up like not doing it at all, or they just don't launch because they're terrified. So I wanted to create this challenge to let people take the pressure off themselves. And it's mostly focused on copy. There's a few design tips, but kind of letting them know, these are the basic parts that are on the typical sales page that you want to think about. And acknowledging how they are probably feeling. So helping them understand it's okay if you feel intimidated. Don't feel like your page has to be long and complicated. And there's some techniques, you can start with these easy sections first and build momentum and then get into the more difficult pieces. And I just wanted it to be a welcoming space that makes people feel calmer about the whole thing and just helps them get started. And also I have ADHD and I do not like to wait for like 5-day challenges. So I made it accessible all at once. So you can do all 5 days in one sitting if you want to binge it, which is how I consume all things.
I love that. And then I am going to link that up in the show notes so people can check that out and get into your challenge and into your world more.
Yeah, thank you.
And then you recently have been very active, or maybe you've actually probably always been pretty active on Instagram. And you did a 30 days of tips.
Yeah. So me being active online comes in waves. I'm like, oh, here's what I want to advertise that I do. And I'm going to be visible. And then I retreat for a while, or I'm in a pivot and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say. So, recently I was like, I want to be more visible. I want to, share my knowledge online. So I decided I'm going to do this 30-day challenge on Instagram and just do stories, giving a tip each day. And I'm also a very spontaneous person. Like, I'm learning to batch, but for the most part, I don't like to batch. I like to do things spontaneously because when I sit down and plan, I get intimidated later because perfectionism leaks in. So I was like, I'm just going to think of the tip the day of and then do it live, like not live, but record a story and then post it. And so I actually I coupled this with like a walking challenge because I love to walk every day, as you know, Laura, because I'm constantly boxing you from the trail. But I gave myself a challenge to walk 20,000 steps and give a tip each day. So that was another like fun way to make it entertaining for me. And it was interesting because things evolved, things changed, just like with business. It was like very parallel to business. I had started with this challenge to do 20,000 steps. I did that for 2 days. And then my knees and ankle were like, no, you can't do that. We need to do less steps. And I started with these like long stories on Instagram that I have to like type in, text on and put the, transcription thing on there and everything. And that started getting shorter and easier until I was just doing a reel. I'm like, well, I'll just make it one simple, quick tip, just the length of one reel. I'm not editing it. I'm not like dropping in text that appears at different points. I'm just going to be walking with my phone and record a reel and then post it. And so it was really cool because I got to see myself learning and iterating on the fly within this 30 days. And some days I was like, what have I already shared about that? It was like coming up with a new thing, got a little challenging, but I did successfully come up with 30 days worth of things. And now, like I did this I was like, I'm not putting any expectations on this. I just want this to be fun. And if something comes of it, great. At least I'll have some content. And it's been amazing because it's created this bank of content, which I've been able to repurpose into my email list. Getting a little bit on TikTok. I'm starting the beginnings of starting a podcast for myself. I'm just recording everything ahead of time and then I'll release it. So I'm pulling from these 30 days for that. And opportunities are starting to come to me because of this, like right from my email list. And it was really amazing to like, everyone says if you, if you pull back on your expectations from something and you just have fun with it, that's when the good stuff happens. And I wasn't sure I believed it, but it really is happening that way right now.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I didn't know all these things were in the works for one. That's exciting. Yeah. I was so impressed watching you because I have not been very visible in the sense of like video reels and all the things. And so I know other people too. I have other friends in the online space who are like terrified to get on video. Do you have any tips for them and me?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I've slowly worked into being okay to put my face on video over the years. Like even when I first started my business, when I was doing the Etsy stuff, I had videos on YouTube, but I didn't show my face. I was just my voice and my screen. And then I was putting them on blogs. And I found success from that. And people actually got a lot of compliments on my voice. Like on my YouTube videos, they're like, oh, your voice is so calming. So that was nice. I was like, oh, all right. I guess I sound okay. And then, the first few times I put my face on camera, I was like, oh, this is horrible. I hate this. I'm like seeing every flaw in my skin and teeth and hair. And then I was like, well, if I just plow ahead and kind of stop focusing on my flaws and kind of just ignore those, just be myself, try to get good lighting. I'm just really authentically me. And that's something I improve upon as the years go by. But I've just decided when I put myself out just as me and I'm silly and I'm animated in the way that I am, I've gotten good feedback from people where they're like, oh, I wanted to work with you because you had that video you did about women smiling with salads and you had that ridiculous thumbnail image of yourself on the cover. And I'm like, I guess good things have come from me being authentic and being on camera, even with my flaws. So now I ignore them and I do these videos and I do them spontaneously. And I've done the thing where I tried to make a home studio with perfect lighting and a camera set up and researching what cameras to get. And in the end, I realized that I'm just a spontaneous person. I like to walk outside. I like to record videos from my car. And if I do those things and people are repelled by it, then those aren't my people. And the people who think it's funny or who are like, yeah, I do all my work in my car too, they are my people and they do appreciate it. And yeah, the more you do, the easier it gets.
I love that so much. I know that I find when I'm consuming audio, or video, which is not the way that I consume a lot of things. I prefer to read things. And so I find when I'm listening to someone and it's like so perfect. There's no ums. It's just it feels very scripted and like, but it's relaxed and it feels very unattainable.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's comparison, which I know I shouldn't be doing, but I still do it because I'm human.
We all do it.
But that's the thing. Like when I watch like a webinar and it's just done so perfect, so flawless. And I'm like, how am I going to create something that's that perfect and flawless? And then I try to get away from that thought process and go into, it's okay for me to do it my way, which is going to have spelling errors. I'm going to have a link that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look up at the ceiling a lot because I do that when I think.
Mm-hmm.
I notice myself do it on calls with clients all the time. I'm like, let me look up at the ceiling for all the answers. They're out there.
I look off to the sides.
And then if someone doesn't like the fact that I have a spelling error, mm-hmm. they can go away because those aren't my people. Like it doesn't happen because the thing I was finding for so many years is I was so worried it had to be perfect that I wasn't doing it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't putting it out there. I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't getting visible. I wasn't hitting publish on the webpage or the blog post or anything because I was so overly consumed with it being perfect. And I think that's the thing that we all need to work harder to get away from. Is that it doesn't need to be perfect. And when it's not perfect and we're just us, it feels better anyway. Mm-hmm. And people respond to that. The right people respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, early days for me recording videos, I say a lot. And I definitely went through some editing where I had to edit out a bunch of ums. Or sometimes I'll record something. It's filled with ums and weird noises. And I'm like, I can't be bothered to edit this. I'm just going to re-record it. And I delete it. And then since I've said it through once already and I have notes, I say it through smoother the second time. And then I'm too lazy to edit a bunch. Like I want it to be easy. I want it to be fast. So Look, I said,
I didn't even hear it. I didn't even hear it. It didn't even,
oh,
I
shouldn't
didn't
have
pick up on
announced
it.
it.
Right?
Yeah. So it just takes practice, and it really, you should try doing like a 10-day or 15-day or a 30-day challenge, because you don't have time to edit those things. Make them short, make them fast. And then after doing it for 30 days in a row, you're going to get kind of used to it, and you'll find your way. You might even say less ums because you heard yourself the first 10 times.
I think the thing that stops me is I'm always wondering, like, what is the thing that I would go and talk about? What's the thing? Is it just websites? Is it integration? Like, what's that thing that I could go in and talk about and like really get a little more granular with that would bring value and get some ahas? And that's, again, like the perfectionism showing up, being like, oh, I don't know what the thing is. So then it stops me from just putting something out there.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is you'd be surprised how many more things you'll think of when you're forced to. Like if you said, I'm going to talk about tech integrations with WordPress and I don't know, Airtable. And you're like, I can only think of one thing. And then day 2 comes and you're like, oh, I could talk about, this plugin. And day 3 comes and you're like, oh, I could talk about that mistake I made that one time and how people could avoid it. Like when you're forced to think, you start thinking deeper and deeper, and you discover like your point of view on things because you just kept thinking about that one thing. So it's really rewarding, actually. But you can always start with like a 10-day. Don't put the pressure of 30 days on yourself.
30 days, 20,000 steps.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. So I would love to know, what would you say were some of the fears and doubts you had when you were first starting out?
Yeah. So early on, like just the launching business phase, I had a lot of fears about legal stuff. Any government organization is like terrifying to me. So I was worried about like, oh, how do I make an LLC? And what about taxes? And it really held me back for a long time. And I learned that I can pay people to do those things for me. And like for the longest time, I was like, well, I got to figure this out, or I got to, ask a friend. But paying somebody is expensive, but it got me moving forward. Like I paid a lawyer to help me with my LLC. I have a good friend of mine. She did it completely on her own for free. Barely, so just like setting up her LLC was like the cost of filing it. And for me, it was like $2,000. But at the time I had some corporate money to spend on that. So paying professionals to help you with some of the scary stuff that, if it's applicable, that helps. So that was like my getting started fears. And then, as I moved more into the services space, a big fear for me was getting on calls, like discovery calls with people. Mm-hmm. Even though I've been on Zoom tons, like in my job, presenting to teams and stuff, like that wasn't so much that I couldn't get on a Zoom call. But when you're getting on a call, hoping to sell to someone or, as a potential client, it's a whole different thing. I was really scared. I tried to find these ways to avoid it. I was like, what business can I create where I don't have to get on calls? But I discovered that it's really important to me that my clients and I like have a good vibe together, mm-hmm. and I feel comfortable with them. And I really want all my clients to be my new BFF. So, and that I actually need that. I need to get on Zoom with them and read their body language and see their face when I'm talking to them. And so I actually can't strip that out. Otherwise I would feel uncomfortable with the work going forward. And so that realization, coupled with some of the amazing programs I've been in and the trainings, like you and I with Sarah Massey, with Pia Silva, I've gotten all these new techniques, and then just doing it more and more, I've gotten more and more confident. So yeah, I'd say those are like the major fears that I had to work through.
I love that. And I love how you overcame those fears. I can relate so much to, I have to get on Zoom calls with potential clients because for the same thing, I need to feel connected to them. because a lot of my clients do continue to be very good friends of mine. Like,
yes.
I love my clients. I have the best clients. And I need to know that we're going to have good energy. Our energy is going to be matched because that's how I connect with them. And I also record all my calls because I can then be more present on the call and not have to worry that my notes make sense, because I've just gone back too many times and looked at that note. I'm like, what did that mean?
I know.
And so I just, very early on, I started recording all the calls. And I had someone told me once, they were like, do you ever even go back? I'm like, you would be surprised how much I go back.
Yeah.
And just,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I do that too.
Do you? Oh my gosh. Too funny. So what would you say you're doing that's being bold in the industry? Something you're doing different from everyone else?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm kind of, coming from a user experience background, always thinking about the user. I'm sort of fighting the good fight for great user experience in sales pages. And so I do a few things differently, I think, than many others, or I think about things in a different way. And that's like three things, really. One is empathy. So I want the sales page copy to sell with hope and not fear. There's just so much of this teaching people to agitate the pain of their customers. And that just feels really hostile to me. And I think you can acknowledge people's pain and problems and encourage them in a more hopeful way than in this fearful way. So that's one thing, is the empathy. And then transparency, especially around pricing, having the price there for people to find and having it discoverable, like high on the page, or you can click to it and see it quickly. And I knew that was what I wanted for my experience. And I've surveyed 100 people and almost all of them said the same thing. So that's something that I encourage my clients to do. I would never force them to do that if they don't want to, but that's a big one for me. And then the length of your page, because there's so many people out there with their miles long sales pages that you have to scroll and scroll to read. And it's stressful. It's overwhelming for people. And I don't think that it's a good experience to put out in the world to have these sales pages that take 30 minutes to consume. So I want to make things smaller, simpler, and more transparent. And yeah, those are kinds of the things that I put out into the world.
I love all those things. I am not a fan of the never-ending sales page. I'm a big fan of, let's keep it simple, and I want to see what the price is, because that's the first thing I look at. And so if I have to scroll for days and then it's hidden, it feels a little frustrating. It feels a little hard, especially if I'm on mobile. I'm like, where is it?
Oh yes, mobile, 100%.
I love how you're doing those things different. I agree that for a very long time, it was agitate the pain point, agitate the pain point, agitate the pain point. And I love the switch that I'm hearing you. And then also there's some other people that I've talked with that talk about, it needs to be more hopeful and positive changes. And let's talk about what the dream could look like, instead of here's those pain points. It hurts.
Yeah.
There's these things that hurt, instead of let's talk about what it could be. Let's talk about this, paint this really nice picture of how lovely life could be with all the freedom and sitting on the beach, relaxing. I don't know. That's me.
With your dogs.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So then I would love to know, how would you say that you're making waves in the industry? Disrupting things.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of that same sort of thing, is that emphasis on hope and then the shorter sales pages. I think people really just don't believe that it could be better. When the people you buy from that are making $1 million have a huge sales page with 500 testimonials and you have to scroll and scroll, it's hard to believe that that's not required for success. And I would love to see some of these more successful sellers test that, like test their long page against a shorter page and see what happens, because I would bet that they'll get even more sales if the page is shorter than they're getting right now. They already have a huge audience. They're going to be successful, right? But I think they would be even more successful.
I love that
simpler
page that you're putting out into the world right there. That's making waves. Exactly. I love that. No, and I agree. There was a sales page I was looking at recently, and like, it's a very big name in the online space. She's got, a bajillion followers, and she's got good programs too. Like, she's amazing. I'm in a bunch of her programs, and the testimonials, like, I don't know that I read a single one of them, but that could be because I already just love and appreciate her so much and the work she does.
Yeah.
But I could do without quite so many testimonials, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a similar experience too, but I don't know, in kind of a different way, where this is another person that I followed for a long time as well. And her page was fairly long, but she had enough testimonials that she actually had a separate testimonials page. Mm-hmm. You might know who I'm talking about. And I loved that. I was like, yay, you didn't clutter up the page. I mean, there were some on the page, but they had this whole other page. And I did go over there and I read almost all of them because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy this program. And I really enjoyed that. And I respected her more and appreciated her and felt like she cared about me more by not forcing me to look at them. And that was like I don't normally tell people to link off of your sales page, but in this case, it made a ton of sense because she had so many testimonials, but they were really powerful too for a complicated program.
Oh, I love that. See, and I like the results page, or what else are those called? Results or client
or case studies,
client results. Yeah, absolutely. Because again, like you said, it doesn't then clutter up the sales page. I'm not saying don't put testimonials on your sales page, like definitely have them on there, but just maybe pare it down a little.
Yes. Not 100.
Oh my goodness. Sarah, I could just talk to you for hours, and we do on Voxer all day long. But we are getting close to the end of our time today. And I have one final question that I would love to ask you, that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone when they are first starting out in their business that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves in their business?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of along the lines of the authenticity we were talking about earlier. And that is, if you don't feel like you are a bold, loud person, that doesn't mean you can't make waves. That to find your way to make waves, and maybe that's a quiet way, maybe it's a slower way, or maybe it's more of a behind the scenes way, that you can make big changes. You don't have to be an extrovert to do that. And if you don't feel like you're bold, that's okay. Just find your way, and then just keep going, keep at it, and find a community of friends that are going to encourage you when you have those down times. Like I have you.
I love that so much. I think that's a great message to put out into the world. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Can you let our listeners know where they can come find you and hang out with you online?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for having me, Laura. You can find me at sarahdesign.com. That's Sarah with an H. And my challenge is easy to find on my website there. And I hang out over on Instagram a lot, and that is at Sarah Design Agency.
Wonderful. I will link that up in the show notes. Thank you for being here today. This was so much fun.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to grow and scale your business, and your current website is outdated and doesn't reflect the magic you bring and the results you get for your clients, go to lauracomark.com to find out how I can help bring your vision to life. That's laurakomark.com. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.